What's the moment that broke Star Wars? A lot of people will answer with the hyperspace ramming scene in The Last Jedi. And yeah, I agree that scene was a massive finger to the Star Wars lore like I mentioned in the hyperspace video. I, however, would argue the goddamn scene where a small Star Destroyer destroys our entire fucking planet is probably the dumbest scene in all of Star Wars that broke everything. But these are all from the Star Wars sequel trilogy where nothing makes a lick of sense. So, since I've already done a few videos shitting on the sequels, I'm gonna talk about the other trilogy that makes no lick of sense. That, my fellow Jerry Cans, is the prequel trilogy.
Perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
Today, let's talk about General Grievous, the character that breaks the rules of Star Wars.
기름,
I do not like General Grievous. Oh yeah, he's a riot and has many memorable lines and many meme sources.
Jedi scum!
But I don't like him because there is something fundamentally wrong with his character. Now, before I begin explaining, I want to clear something up. No, it's not because General Grievous was pointless to the plot of Revenge of the Sith and about as useless to the story as Rose Tico in The Last Jedi and Bol Gurlitt in Rogue One. No, it's not because he was a badass in the original 2003 2D Clone Wars series and became a clown in Revenge of the Sith. No, it's not because of his goofy voice or his kind of stupid death. Then what's the problem, you may ask? Well, it's because Grievous is a character that doesn't play by the rules of the universe. Yeah, Grievous is a bigger Mary Sue than Rey, Poe, Luke, and Anakin, the fucking Chosen One, combined. How? Part 1. Forceless Lightsaber. Let's talk about the character concept of Grievous itself. The opening crawl of Revenge of the Sith states the General is a fiendish droid leader. However, our dear lovable General is a COVID-19 victim because he coughs all the time. This shows that he has organic parts in him, but he is mostly a droid with mechanical parts. So he is a living guy that is more machine now than man. Now, what makes the General unique is that even though he is a living being that can't use the Force, he uses a lightsaber like the Jedi and the Sith. And apparently he was trained by Count Dooku himself.
I've been trained in your Jedi arts by Count Dooku.
Even though Count Dooku had only 2 arms last time I checked and had 0 when he died. Why does he mention he was trained by Count Dooku to Obi-Wan when obviously it's not their first encounter and Obi-Wan trained the guy that killed Dooku? Oh yeah, cause George wrote the script. Anyways, the point is, he is one of the few characters in Star Wars that uses lightsaber even though they can't use the Force. So unlike Jedis who can use the Force to predict incoming blaster fire to deflect, Grievous can't deflect blaster fire with his sabers. The other 2 people in canon that I can think of that use a lightsaber but aren't Force sensitive are Pre Vizsla from Clone Wars and Moff Gideon from The Mandalorian. However, Grievous is unique because unlike Gideon and Pre Vizsla, Grievous is really good with the lightsaber and is a so-called Jedi hunter. I didn't make that up, BTW, because there is actual Wikipedia article titled that. I also found a trading card on Google Images that titled him as Jedi Hunter.
I, on the other hand, love my unofficial title. The feature that makes me such an effective hunter of the Jedis is, as opposed to most German soldiers, I can think like a
Jedi.
Anyways, General Grievous is a famous Jedi hunter, feared by many, who kills Jedi for sport and collects their lightsabers so that he can make them into a fine addition to his collection. I have some problems with this fact and now I'll explain. Part 2. Robot versus the Force. I'll get straight to the point. Grievous should not be able to beat a Jedi. No matter how much he swings his 4 lightsabers, Grievous should not be even able to defeat a Padawan. No, he should not be even able to defeat a youngling. Yes, Grievous should get his ass kicked by children. It's because the Force is just too fucking overpowered. And Grievous seems to act as if the Force doesn't work on him. In other words, why doesn't the Jedi just use the Force to throw him into lava, keep him stationary with the Force and cut off his limbs, or just simply choke him and crush him to death? Or better yet, since his main weapons are lightsabers, just take the swords off his hands like Anakin does from his cape in episode 3.
Make them suffer.
If you think about it, Grievous is no different than the battle droids he commands, except that he can swing some lightsabers, and the Jedi cuts through the battle droids like hot butter, and use the Force on them easily. Why don't they just do the same to Grievous? Any Jedi can defeat him seconds by just choking him to death, and he's called a Jedi Hunter?
Just a name that stuck.
Like every time I watch Revenge of the Sith where Obi-Wan fights Grievous, or any Clone Wars episode that features Grievous for that matter, I just keep shouting in my head, use the damn Force! Grievous doesn't have his lightsaber and Obi-Wan have to fight him hand to hand. Obi-Wan, stop clowning around and just lift him up with the Force and throw him off the cliff or something. Now you may say, the only reason why Obi-Wan didn't use the Force against Grievous in Revenge of the Sith is because he was surrounded by droids, and using the Force against him would have meant all the droids open firing on Kenobi. That's fair, and that also reminds me of the scene in Clone Wars where Maul takes on Pre Vizsla. Maul could have just choked Slim Happy Hogan to death, but he didn't use the Force so he can gain powers through a fair fight.
I challenge you, one warrior to another, and only the strongest shall rule Mandalore.
Okay, that's fair, so the Utapu fight can be explained. However, the encounter with Grievous on the Bridge of Invisible Hand isn't explained. Any other Clone Wars episode where the heroes fight Grievous don't make sense. Just use the Force. Use the Force.
You lose, General Kenobi.
Just use the Force, guys. Part 3. Possible explanation? When I first sat down to write this video script, I actually first thought that Grievous made out of a special metal that makes it immune to the Force or something. Oh wait, this happens, never mind. Now, there is one possible explanation why the Jedi don't use the Force on Grievous, and it concerns the original 2D Clone Wars series, and that is, it's just that he's just too fast. For this video, I rewatched all the scenes with Grievous in the 2003 Clone Wars series where he first appeared. For those who don't know, this series came out before the Revenge of the Sith, and Grievous is a very different character there. He wears a white cape, has a different voice, has a completely different personality, and most importantly, is way more agile and a big threat. Now, he first appears in the scene where he takes on a couple of Jedi surrounded by battle droids, which includes Ki-Adi-Mundi, Shaak Ti, and Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. Again, not making that up, Star Wars is fucking weird. Anyways, in the fight scene, there's a shot where Ki-Adi-Mundi tries to use Force Push or something, and Grievous actually dodges it. So I guess this is likely the most possible explanation. Grievous is more nimble than the Force powers of Jedi Masters. However, there are two holes to this explanation. First, Grievous is too different from the 2D Clone Wars series than the movies, so Grievous being faster than the Force doesn't work in the movies. I mean, I just don't see this slow, clumsy hunk of coughing metal being fast enough to dodge Jedi telekinesis. He couldn't dodge this Force push by Obi-Wan. Second, even in the rules of the 2D Clone Wars series, Grievous couldn't dodge this. Why didn't Shaak Ti just use this sooner when Grievous was trying to kidnap Palpatine?
I failed.
Sure you did, Master Sharktail. You deserve to get killed twice.
What is it, Skywalker?
Part 4. Let's fix Grievous. So in the spirit of my previous Star Wars videos, let's try to fix this. Is there a way to make Grievous a more plausible and threatening villain against overpowered Jedi heroes? I think there is one way, and it's to make him immune to the Force. Grand Admiral Thrawn, who's a normal guy by the way without any Force powers, had this means in the original Thrawn trilogy novels. In the books, Thrawn always carried out a Yalsamir, which are these salamanders that create Force bubbles that can protect people from the Force. He uses these pet Pokemon to protect himself from a Dark Jedi so that he can control him. I wish Canon Thrawn had this ability when he got his ass kicked by a fucking teenager. Anyways, I guess we can say General Grievous is made up of strange rare metals that have the same property that is immune to the Force or something. Then again, if we do this, we get plot holes like, why didn't Darth Vader armor himself with this metal? Or heck, why didn't any non-Force user use this metal or something? Bottom line, General Grievous just existing breaks Star Wars, and is no different from the hyperspace ramming scene, so he sucks. Force powers are so overpowered if you think about it. The only way non-Force users can win against a Force user is through surprise tactics or just sheer numbers, because Jedis can't deflect 5,000 blaster bolts at the same time. That's why the droid army makes sense to me, because you can make like billions of these disposable robots so they can fight Jedi. General Grievous, on the other hand, no matter how strong he is just one man, and he's a dude that has to face an army of wizards. He should not stand a chance, let alone be a murderous Jedi hunter. Anyways, that's been a rant on why Star Wars doesn't make sense. I guess the whole purpose of making this video is for all the people that were like, Disney ruined Star Wars or something, when in truth the entire thing doesn't make sense ever since its conception. Like, let's go back to A New Hope for example. Why didn't Death Star just destroy the gas giant of Yavin? Why did Vader wait patiently by casually targeting X-Wings on the computer when they're all flying in a straight line? Why doesn't the Falcon just jump into hyperspace the moment they leave the Death Star? Bottom line, Star Wars is not a science fiction franchise, but science fantasy. Plot holes can be ignored for drama and characters, so it doesn't matter if nothing makes sense. Grievous as a character doesn't make sense, but he has an awesome design and is overall a fun character, so that's what matters. So please don't think too much about logic when watching Star Wars. And I guess I just wasted my time thinking too much about this godforsaken franchise.
Years of academy training wasted.
Anyways, that's the end. By the way, this is my third attempt on a hit Star Wars video. I'm gonna become a fall PokeTuber if this video doesn't blow up.
Well, if at first you don't succeed. Hey, try again.